these people are exercising a kind of corrupted form of the Christian value of compassion,
Yeah.
and they think to be loving to their neighbor is to sort of embrace them and celebrate the things that they celebrate.
Hmm.
They also conflate the religion with the person, or they conflate Islam with Muslims, and we've seen this a million times.
Hmm.
The insane Ben Affleck clip from ages ago that kind of red pilled everyone when he was just like, he just couldn't get his head around the fact that to criticize Islam doesn't mean you can't be loving to individual Muslims. One's an
Yeah.
ideology and the other's people. And so I think in this desperation to show kind of a compassion and kindness and niceness, Christians, some Christians, well-meaning Christians, but who need to read the Bible a bit more, are trying to demonstrate that, but it's not honoring to God. Especially as the Bible's super clear about this. Is like, don't call evil good, don't call good
Mm.
evil, and God Himself is not neutral about other gods, other religions. There's like so much of the Bible is about like, find out what's true, honor me, follow me, don't follow these other religions. They're not good. And it's so funny because that's not it's a really countercultural thing to say. I don't think your religion is good. I mean, we people are comfortable saying that about ideology,
Yeah.
but religion is a form of ideology. It's a worldview. It's a belief. And again, you're not judging the person. You're not being nasty to the person. Basically, the church has it should have nothing to do with stuff like this in terms of practicing these things or celebrating Ramadan or anything like that.
I think so. Like even beyond Christianity, there's a reason why we are seeing a shift in people's mentality. And Christianity is, I think so, Christianity is more relevant. Obviously you would disagree because you believe it to be true, right?
Mhm.
I think so Christianity is more relevant in the West because it is the most dominant religion, but I've seen that same need for revival in India as well, of Hindu faith and stuff like that.
Mm.
It's a revival of the concept of that there is something more than us, because we have gone down this materialistic route so much, right, that its
Mm.
manifestation, endpoint manifestation, has been the woke ideology. It's
Yeah, but to
because
what end? Like, so this is like, I totally get what you're saying,
Hmm,
and if I weren't a Christian and if I weren't religious,
yeah, that,
I would say the
that's
same thing as you,
yeah,
which is that all we have is utility, all we have
yeah.
is
After I left that angry phase after leaving Islam, was always like, we're not alone. There's an importance between human connection. I don't think that any of the gods of the religion are true, but I believe that there is something out there that I can't understand, that I have a relation to. It's not just me individual. I can't be just individual. So
yeah, sure.
I've always been a good Samaritan in that sense, that I always help other people out, because that's my religion, in a
Mm,
sense. Like my fellow
yeah,
human beings and taking care of them is sort of my religion then. And it's always
yeah,
been, even before I was Muslim, or after I've been, like, even as an atheist. And the more that I saw this nihilistic, materialistic outlook of atheists growing more and more and more,
mm,
that's when I started distancing myself from them. Because, like, you're not serving a higher purpose, like, beyond yourself. Even if you don't believe in God, it's not conducive for a social animal to live individual lives.
yeah,
It's illogical. And for
yeah.
me, that's why the atheistic life, the individualistic, atheistic, materialistic life becomes illogical. Hello there, everyone. Welcome to the World of Momos podcast. And today on Reflections and Reactions, we have Sophie Spital with us. Now, usually I introduce my guest a bit before, but you know what I'm going to do today, in the spirit of things? I'm going to give Sophie the Konstantin Kisin treatment. I'm going to ask her, "Who the hell are you? Why are you here?" I'm pretty sure Konstantin words it a bit differently, but yeah, let's go ahead.
Who
Tell
the
us
hell
your
am I?
story.
um, I didn't know you were going to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Sophie Spittle. I'm from Essex, like you. Well, you're living in Essex.
Yeah.
I, I work for Triggernometry. I am the uh, interview editor, do some YouTube stuff, do a little bit of everything. Try and keep the boys in check, make jokes about Konstantin's hairline, stuff like that. Um,
Don't make
I
joke about my hairline.
Yeah, sorry, that's too far gone.
Yeah.
But it's okay with KK, but for you, it's just cruel. It's just, and I
I
wouldn't do
know,
that
it's
to you.
just yeah, it's
Um,
beating
but,
yeah.
so I've done that since, 2020. I got hold
Oh,
of them
yeah.
during the pandemic, and, I'm a video editor by trade and video producer, and so I've been doing that. Also, I went on Trigonometry as a guest last
Yes, you
year.
did. It was a really good episode.
Oh, well, thank
I'll
you.
link it. The link should now come up over here or
Yeah,
wherever it
check
is.
it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, that was interesting actually because, yeah, that has never been, basically, I did an interview talking about the fact that I, had gender dysphoria for a vast majority of my life. So, um, I don't refer to myself as trans because I have, objections to the way that that's talked about. But, yeah, I had gender dysphoria, so from a very young age that I thought I was, male, and that took kind of a long process to sort out, and so that's one of the reasons like, the boys asked me on the pod to talk about that and my journey through I feel like I've been through every ideology at this point. I used to be, like, quite a far leftist, used to be quite, well, actually quite radical in that, I suppose, which is really interesting to see actually because, when I was really part of the vanguard, I'd say, of what was wokeism about 10 years ago, that actually, the people that I was, like, arguing alongside, they were seen as, like, these really progressive, like, heroes, literally on, like, a world, on a world, level, like, the feminists that do you remember back when, like, 10 years ago when feminism was just completely different and it was actually just quite delusional, really?
I don't know. It was still annoying, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but, like, it
It
was
it was not what it is now, the
yeah.
intensity of the hatred towards men and yeah.
No, but it yes, but what I was gonna say is it's really interesting because, the women who I was, like, shoulder to shoulder with at the time as a leftist and a progressive, they're now, they've gone from being, like, these most lauded to the most hated because they are now the TERFs. Um, so it is ironic because they've become, like, what the progressives now actually, like, really hate them, but they haven't changed their ideology. They just, they've just kept saying the same things, and trans
Yeah.
ideology came along and then made them uncool.
So, but
And
how did that make you good? Because it's sort of like coming out of religion, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
I've experienced that when I was Muslim a long, long time ago now.
mm,
Probably left it 18 or so years ago, like properly
yeah,
left it or in the process of leaving it 18, 16 years ago. But you feel a kind of there's a kind of anger, but then there's betrayal, and then there's deep resentment that you have to deal with because resentment makes you do really bad things or go down really dark paths, so you have to deal with it as soon as possible. And then there's almost a way of finding another tribe to latch on to,
mm,
right, like straight away, so that you don't feel all that feeling of insecurity and stuff. And for me that was atheism, and it took a while to leave that tribe as well because that sent me through negative point.
mm.
But did that, like, on some level, did you feel have those feelings?
It's a really good question. I'm actually really interested, by the way, and this is one of the things I wanted to talk to you about your change in that area because I was listening to your Birdie Rose interview, the first one,
Hmm.
um, and you talked about that a bit, and so I thought that'd be good to talk about. But I didn't experience that kind of resentment or anything like that you're talking about because for me, like, I already had a primary worldview in that
Hmm.
I'm a Christian, I'm a
Yeah.
Bible believing devout
Yeah.
Christian, and for me, the feminism was a misguided attempt at trying to live that out well, because at the time
Mm,
I I love God, passionate about him, and I wanted to be loving in the world because obviously that's really important. It's the primary call really from Christ is to go out, love other people as he loved the world. And at the time, that was what was handed to me as the loving thing, is that women, have been subjugated and oppressed and they need to be lifted up. And so and then so I do it was like that was in aid of my Christianity rather than that was the tribe in itself. And so when I came out of that and I realized that actually it was more damaging and actually unhelpful, uh, I went about trying to steer things in what is actually, a godly, good way of helping the world. So I went back to that, and I've had my crises of faith along the way, and my doubts and like it, having to examine whether I actually believe this stuff. But by the grace of God, I'm now at a point where I'm very strong in my faith. I don't have to worry about those things anymore. And so now I'm just like, okay, what is the actual thing that's helpful and good in the
yeah,
world? Yeah, and that's when I left the left, the progressive left, let's say.
yeah,
Um, Kind
yeah.
of pursuing that, and now I have other completely different, but other ways of trying to live out what it means to be a Christian in the world. That's my number 1 priority.
See, there's a very important thing that you said over there, apart from everything else as well, which was important. Not
Cheers.
negating that. I wasn't listening, but no.
You said one good thing.
Yeah. No, the thing about doubt, right? So that you've had crisis of faith and whatnot. What I've come to realize is that it's actually important to have that, no matter what faith you have. So my trouble begins when people stop doubting whatever they see as worldview, because if you stop doubting, then you will stop adapting and stop evolving your thoughts as you're growing older, right?
Yeah,
So that would give me personally alarm that this person is becoming dogmatic.
yeah,
And the other thing that gives me alarm is if the system itself stops you from doubting, right?
yes, yeah,
And that is what I've seen the left become as well. And I was like loosely held by left sort of a thing, like, it didn't, politics in that sense didn't concern me. I was always like, well, maybe a centrist in that way, but like, talk to me about topics and then I'll decide which way I'll lean, sort of a thing, but I will lean. I won't like sit on the fence. I will lean one way or the other.
mhm,
But I saw, like, since before, I think the Trump era 2016 onwards, it just started becoming like either agree with us or you're one of them,
yeah,
or you're the enemy.
yeah,
And that just progressively started making me feel like uncomfortable being in their spaces,
mm,
being among those people
mm,
who were once classical liberal turning dogmatic all of a sudden.
yeah,
So I think so. And then that's eventually when I said, like, okay, I've had enough of it. I don't want to be with you guys. I actually like being among the right or the centrist, or like even faith wise, I like being with the Christians because they're more welcoming. There's actually love over there when you go, like, every now and then. Sometimes I would go to Sunday mass and stuff like that, and there's a huge difference going to the church
mm,
compared to when I used to go to the mosque,
mm.
right? Like on Friday prayers and stuff, it used to be very, they used to charge you up, like, as if like
Charge you
we're
up.
gonna we're gonna conquer the Jews and the Europeans. It's like, yeah, but I want something else in life. Like, I don't want to be a Viking. Leave me alone.
Yeah, oh, that's interesting. Would you
Yeah.
say that's, reflective of most mosques or just one that you encountered?
um I would say it's the general feeling of the religion itself, because
Right.
I found it, like, we're going off the topic now, and a lot of people have been blaming me for talking too much on my podcast. So I gotta say to those people, I have conversations, I don't have interviews, so I will babble on.
Yeah.
So, what was I saying? Yeah. So the problem is, at the heart of it, I found, it took me 6 years to leave, right? Because, and I had a lot of crisis in the, like, at the from the age of 16 to 22. That's when I actually started leaving.
Right.
but consciously started leaving, researching, and it was hard to leave. And I can admit now that I tried to take my own life as well in that time period as well,
Mm, right.
which I don't know. Thankfully or unthankfully for some people, it didn't go through. It was hard, but I didn't find any spirituality in there, right? And there's a very stark difference between, I don't care like whatever people say about Christianity. Yes, I don't believe in the factual things within Christianity, but I take the message for what it is supposed to be, the core messages and stuff like that. And when you go to Sunday Mass, you feel elated. You feel like you feel love. If you're going to the right churches, to be honest, like these days, Church of England has corrupted what the faith was supposed to be, as I see it. Well, when you go, because you're going with the family, right? Like you go with the family, you go either with your partner, or like people are going with their kids and stuff. It's a very different atmosphere, so you are projecting sort of love sort of thing. And I have no idea why we got onto this subject, because I was asking about you.
I asked you about mosques and what
All
they're
right.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's generally like that. Like when I was growing up, it was in Kuwait, right? So I didn't understand half of what they were saying. So
Right.
because they were speaking in Arabic. It's when
Right.
I went to Pakistan when I actually started understanding what they're talking about. So
Mm,
it could be that there's a difference,
mm.
that I just didn't get. But overall, is like the core of the bad coding is bad coding, right?
Yeah.
So
That's
it is
basically
bad
your
coding.
catchphrase at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's becoming my catchphrase now. It is bad coding. Like,
Mm.
you see it in communism, no matter how much you want to dress it up, Marxism, how like,
Yeah, the
oh no,
outcome
they're
is gonna
Stalinists, they're this. It's like, dude, it's bad coding at the core. Is
yeah,
bad coding. It's going
yeah,
to lead to bad outcomes.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
Couldn't
back to
agree
you.
more.
So when when you left the left,
Yes.
how long was it till you left the left and then you got onto this opportunity and started working with trigonometry?
Oh, right. Gosh. Well, I mean, I don't know, how much time you've got, but there were several things around
Yeah.
the time of, the election in 2015 and then Brexit, in 2016, and several kind of, red pill moments, around that time that really I realized that the whole thing was, yeah, just not useful and not true.
Yeah,
Although
useful is a good
there were
point.
some
Yeah.
seeds of truth in there, which is obviously what draws one in the first place. Um, I think one of the moments for me, I remember, I went. I remember. Do you remember there was a time in, I think around 2015, when around that time there were lots of terrorist attacks happening in Europe and in the UK.
Yeah.
If there was a season where it almost felt like an existential threat. Like it felt like every single week or 2 weeks there was like a stabbing or a suicide attack or something. And I remember everyone sort of bending over backwards, including, like my instinct as well, which is to be like, well, Islam is a religion of peace and da 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 da. And I'm thinking, I know because I'm a Christian, I know that people, you have to look at the text and see, because I think we've got this weird idea sometimes in the West. We can't understand that people are religious and they take their text seriously. So people always say, oh, Muslims, they're not really like abiding by their law. They're just doing their own thing for political reasons. Now, sometimes obviously that's the case,
Yeah.
but I know as a religious person, we take scripture very seriously and we orient our lives
Hmm.
around that. And so when everyone was bending over backwards to sort of say that this is nothing to do with Islam or these attacks, there were a few voices, and the big one for me was Douglas Murray, absolute hammer
Hmm.
legend that he
Yeah.
is. Big
Legend.
Dougie is what
Yeah.
we call him. Um, lovely, lovely guy.
Love
Um,
him to bits. Yeah.
I was just,
Amazing guy.
sorry.
Amazing guy. I love him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and also really, really nice in real life. And yeah, so he was. It felt like almost a lone voice saying, this is
Yeah.
not the case. And as a leftist at the time, that resonated with me because I could see it's like the religious side of me and the kind of well-wishing side of me clashed at that point because I was like, I actually know that he's telling the truth here. And then I started to think, well, he people are telling me, oh, this guy is this racist guy and this bigoted guy, but everything he's saying I know to be much more in line with truth than what these people who are supposedly my allies are saying. And so that and a few other things like that really started me down that path. And because because I'm autistic and I'm a bit go hard or go home, I don't really have a middle ground. So I kind of went right into that. I sort of dived into things like the Rubin report at the time, which is,
Yeah.
so the IDW stuff, Ben Shapiro, and it's an interesting time around 2016, and then obviously that was the perfect time when JBP, our beloved internet father, uh,
Yeah.
kind of sprang into existence. And so I rode that wave, and then I was thinking, gosh, I wish there were something like this in the UK. And then a friend, told me about trigonometry, and so I listened to that. And then during lockdown, I just thought, why don't I message them? Because I've got like over a decade of video experience and they're a
Yeah.
video channel and I believe in what they do. And that's that.
That's done. It's important to it's important to address that because it's the same thing that I see over right now, that people have started appeasing to the Muslims, right? And there's a lot of people now. I do get a lot of pushback about this, that, oh, it's the Islamist and the jihadist is not Islam, and I keep telling them, like, guys, it is Islam, right? This is the reason why I left. I didn't leave because I had like pressure to leave the religion. I left because it came to a point where it was my moral duty to distance myself from an evil ideology as I saw it to be, right? It wasn't like I could have just pretended, I would have been
Yeah.
way better off financially and everything, still connected with my wider family and stuff, like, but it was a moral duty to recognize evil for what it is,
Mm,
right? And moderate Muslims, the problem with moderate Muslims is they don't know their religion,
mm,
right?
mm.
So they don't know their religion, so they are not a reflection of the religion itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't judge Christianity by someone who only goes to the church on Christmas mass,
Yeah. I was just
right?
thinking the same thing. It's so similar, like, and this is the problem on both fronts, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
you've got
but
people
we
saying,
start appeasing it, don't we? We doing the same thing that happened around those time when you're talking about 2015 and stuff like that, which was 9 years ago if you think about it now.
wow,
And yeah, I know.
we are
I
old,
I
man.
know. Ancient. How are we still alive? But but also, 9/11 happened,
Yeah.
right? I was 15 years old when that happened. That was the time when I started leaving Islam, because I,
Mm,
I was in Pakistan, in Karachi, in school. The day after, or I can't remember exactly, but we had a school assembly. Every morning we used to have school assembly, and our principal led the cheers that we have struck a blow at America and stuff like that, and everyone was cheering and stuff.
mm,
And I was there just looking at the kids, even at that age, and I was like, what is wrong with these people? There's
mm,
innocent people who have died. And she was at that time as well, like, oh yeah, but 3,500 Jews were not working on that day. I was like, your obsession with Jews is so disturbing. Like,
mm,
you
mm,
know but I saw in that moment what bad coding does, that no matter what, there's every potential for people to go back to revert to it, right? Even though, no matter how many good things you put on top, no matter how many
yeah.
ways that you try to help it, it's corrupted from the start. The
Mm,
only good way for Muslims to be good is to leave Islam and become Christian. That's the only way that they can, because and okay, before I start rambling on more and more,
mm,
because people have probably heard me say these things anyways. What is your view
mm,
about the interfaith thing within the churches? And I'll give you my view shortly. before you start, right? So especially for Christians to include Muslims in interfaith, I think so. It's wrong. I think so. It's morally wrong because it's not a different religion. It's a religion which is a corruption of the Abrahamic faith, which is there saying negating Christianity. It
Mm,
is there saying that it doesn't believe in the Holy Trinity, and is saying that Jesus was not the Son of God,
mm,
and that Muhammad is the one afterwards, and then you should believe in them, right?
mm, mm,
This is why interfaith does not make sense to me. So, because you are accepting them or accepting their claim,
mm.
if you can treat them like human beings and stuff, but you
Of
can't
course, yeah.
treat their ideology, because their ideology is diametrically opposed to yours. It
Of
negates
course.
yours, right?
Of course, yeah.
I just don't understand why they do that. And even when they're celebrating Ramadan, oh, we could take, it's like Ramadan is the month when the Quran started getting revealed, the word of God according to them.
Yeah.
If you're accepting Ramadan, you're accepting their whole faith.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is your view on like these interfaith?
Yeah. Well, if anyone's read the Bible, which I have many times through and through, um, it's so obvious. It's this shouldn't even be a conversation. Like there's I feel like so much of the Bible is God just saying like, if you're, you know, if you're a person who follows me, if you're, you shall have no other God apart from me.
Hmm.
And it's not just that you shouldn't. It's uh okay. Let me just take a step back because I think what's happening is that these people are uh, exercising a kind of corrupted form of the Christian value of compassion,
Yeah.
and they think to be loving to their neighbor is to sort of embrace them and celebrate the things that they celebrate.
Hmm.
Um, and they also conflate the religion with the person, or they conflate Islam with Muslims, and we've seen this a million times.
Hmm.
The insane Ben Affleck clip from ages ago that kind of red pilled everyone when he was just like he just couldn't get his head around the fact that um, to criticize Islam doesn't mean you can't be loving to individual Muslims. One's an
Yeah.
ideology and the other's people. And so what I think in this desperation to show kind of compassion and kindness and niceness, Christians, some Christians, well-meaning Christians, but who need to read the Bible a bit more, are trying to demonstrate that, but it's not honoring to God, especially as the Bible's super clear about this. It's like don't call evil good, don't call good
Mm.
evil, and God Himself is not neutral about other gods, other religions. There's like so much of the Bible is about like you know honor, like find out what's true, honor me, follow me, don't follow these other religions, they're not good. And it's so funny because that's not it's a really countercultural thing to say. I don't think your religion is good. I mean, we people are comfortable saying that about ideology,
Yeah.
and but religion is a form of ideology. It's a worldview. It's a belief. And again, you're not judging the person. You're not being nasty to the person. But basically, the church has it should have nothing to do with stuff like this in terms of practicing these things or celebrating Ramadan or anything like that. It should just stick
Having
to
someone
following
pray,
Christ.
like call a prayer, azan
No,
in the churches, it's just it's
what I
sacramental,
think
like.
is that we've lost, and when I say we, because I'm not part of the Church of England, I'm part of a sort of non-denominational, like I'm actually part of New Frontiers, which is a kind of more evangelical movement, Protestant, but like
Mhm.
not affiliated with the Church of England. So I'm looking at this almost as an outsider as well, but also still as a Christian. So it hurts me deeply.
Yeah,
Um,
because Catholics have started doing that as well.
yeah, and yeah. So there's problems across the board. But I think they've lost so much. confidence in the truth of what they claim to believe. Don't know if they actually believe it, but what they claim to believe. They lost so much confidence in that. They've kind of whittled it down to what is something that we can all agree on, and they think looking at Western values and you know, well, we can all agree that it's nice to be kind, can't we? Okay, let's be kind, and so let's include people in this act of worship. It has nothing to do with the teachings of the Bible. But that what I would say is this is that there's a very clear injunction in scripture, there's several actually, but there's a very clear injunction about Christians ought not to uh, judge those outside of the church, but they need to judge those inside the church. So I might have strong words to say. I will always have very strong words to say to Christians who corrupt the word of God. Um, in fact, it always blows my mind. I'm like, our whole life, everything is based on this. And you're just deciding to be like, nah, I'm just going to,
Yeah.
preach whatever I want. It's
Yeah.
just so mental to me. But so I'm very critical of Christians that do that. It's deeply, deeply wrong and insulting for Christians to do that. But I don't But it's not like I'm going around judging other people. Like, if you're not a Christian, then, the boys at Trigonometry
But
always kind of
sorry, go ahead.
like,
No.
I just finish this one thing is
Yeah.
that, the boys at Trigonometry always talk about this, particularly Konstantin, is that, I am I try very hard to maintain this principle of if someone is living a way that is not in line with the Bible, I can I might call it out and say, that's if someone asks me, or, is that good for you or is that good for society? But I'm not interested in changing people's behavior. Um, but because if you're not a Christian, you're not going to follow the precepts of Christianity. And so we don't really shouldn't have much to do with telling people how to live their lives if they're not believers in Christ. But when it comes to judging the church, I have a lot to say about it. And that doesn't mean you can't tell people about the goodness of the teachings of God. But the point is this, it's a fundamental difference. Christianity is different from any other religion because it's like Christianity teaches that we're all like essentially dead to God and no one can actually make himself alive. So if anyone becomes a Christian, that is a gift of God and a gift of the Holy Spirit, and that person is then made alive and then made into a sort of new creation. They see things through that prism, and so you can't expect people who, again, it's not politically correct to say this, but who the Bible would say is spiritually dead, to sort of be living out this kind of you
Just
know,
their
ver-
worldly life.
yeah, because it's like, well, you know, the, the power of Christianity and the reason why it's so different from Islam, and you can tell me if you agree with this or not, but the power of Christianity is that if you are a Christian, you love Christ and you love God and you love his precepts, and you're doing anything you're doing that's Christiany stuff is coming from a heart of basically like being married. Like you're in a relationship, and so uh that those good works are coming out of a place of like loving and enjoying it and seeing the good in it. And so it's coming from a transformed heart, and that overflow of that heart and the love of God makes you want to put that out into the world, and makes you want to change your behavior as well. And so it's totally different as I see it from a religion that tells you what to do and says, I don't know, you'll go to hell if you don't do it. And so I can't even remember the point I'm making now, but I just think that's a really important distinction, because if you're doing these things from that perspective rather than compulsion, let's say, or fear. And I think there are probably still well, I know there are Christians, maybe probably more culturally Christians, to be honest,
Yeah.
who do things out of fear. Like maybe if you've had a really strong, I don't know, Catholic upbringing or
Yeah.
something, you
Yeah.
might feel like, "Oh, I'm doing this because of fear of hell." But the whole point of Christ coming is that he wanted to, as the Bible says, write the law of God on our hearts. So we're
Mm.
not just keeping laws, it's like it comes out the heart. That's the major distinction.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit similar with Islam, in that sense that, uh, you can't be a Muslim unless you embody every single aspect of the religion, right? So you can't be a loose, like a moderate. So the thing, which again I come back to that idea of moderate Muslims and stuff, where they say, oh yeah, Muslims, because people, you know what the problem is, that in the West, people have these moderate Muslim friends, and they base their view of Muslim through their lens. It's like, yeah, but my friend is fine. Like, he sometimes drinks with me, or he doesn't drink with me, but he's fine. He doesn't want to kill the Jews. He doesn't want to kill the ex-Muslims and
Yeah.
stuff. And
Yeah.
well, he doesn't matter actually, right? Within faith, he doesn't matter. There's a term called munafiq, which means hypocrite
Mm,
within Islam,
mm,
and it is written in Quran about the munafiq. The munafiq are the people who pretend to be Muslims,
mm,
but they don't follow all the precepts. Okay. And Allah says in the Quran that you might be able to forgive them, but I will never forgive them.
mm,
Okay. Now these are a group of people that Allah is Himself saying He will never forgive, right?
mm,
Allah even says that people who are of the book, the Christians and the Jews,
mm,
eventually they will be forgiven and they will go to heaven, the Muslim heaven, right? So people will still get some virgins. But but these people He will never forgive,
yeah.
right? So this is why I keep trying to tell them, look, it doesn't matter about your moderate friends. And I know a lot of moderate Muslims are trying to, put out this message of, oh, it's anti-Muslim is something else than Islamophobia. And it's like, I'm sorry, but your whole ideology is wrong and you need to reject it, right? And even looking from a Christian, outside of Christian but into Christian cultural point of view,
Mm,
because people view Christ as hippie. Oh, he loved everyone. It's like, you can't love something unless you know what the other side of it is, right? What you don't love. You
mm,
can't just, so you have to recognize evil to understand what good is. And that
mm,
is the whole point of Christianity. So even if you love your neighbor, like you were saying,
mm,
you love your neighbor, yeah, as a human being, you help them and you do everything that you can with them, even though they might not be Christian.
mm,
But you try to, you can't accept, if they're living a bad life, that it is good,
mm,
right? Because you're recognizing they're not living a bad life. Now, even if we take it out of the context of religion, because I'm not into like religion that much, but I understand like good from evil, and I can recognize a good culture from a bad culture and
mm,
try to emulate things from a good culture, sort of a thing. So let's say, even out of the context of religion, I have a neighbor, and she's a prostitute, right?
mm.
This is not real, by the way, just so people are aware, and my neighbors are aware. I'm sorry. But imagine if she is that, right? So I would try to help her if she needs like any help, and whatever to do as a good neighbor. But I would not see her as a good person, and I would try to, if I can, let her know that there are better ways to be. You
Yeah.
don't have to do this, because it's not, for me, it's not religious thing. It's like, it's, if you live out your life, it's not going to work out the best way for you. The
Yeah.
suicide rates are off the roof for people who indulge in such things.
Yeah.
You're not going to have a family, you're not going to have a fulfilled life, no matter who you believe in. you
Yeah.
know so
Exactly.
it doesn't stop me from being a good neighbor, but I
Yeah.
have to recognize this is the same thing that I have with Muslims, right? I'm not hating you as a person, but I am going to be anti-Muslim and Islamophobic in that sense, because I'm against what you're acting and what you're believing. Because it's
Mm,
not just like you're believing, because you're acting out those things in, even in your private spaces.
mm.
Your thoughts that you're acting out, that you actually have negative thought towards people and stuff, that
Yeah.
then you propel the conspiracies against the Jews or against other people. You keep this alive, this ideology alive, that sprews so much hatred, right?
Mm.
If you're moderate, there's no guarantee that your kids will be moderate. If they all they have to do is read the Quran, right? That's all they have to do, and follow their religion. They will
Yeah.
not be moderate anymore.
Yeah.
Islamists and the jihadis are the ones who are actually Muslim. Like,
Yeah.
they're trying to understand the religion as best as they can,
Yeah.
and just
And
so
that's so
happens the
for a
religion is
Christian,
not good.
that's for a Christian, that's so obvious to see, because we're surrounded by likewise by Christians or so-called self-identifying Christians, let's say, who are just basically doing whatever they want and saying, well, I'm a Christian and, so therefore Christians can do this. It's interesting actually because there's a parallel here with the trans stuff in the sense that um, if you just decide that you can just do anything or be anything and add that to the definition, it's like, well, so we got this thing. A Muslim is someone that lives by the Quran. A Christian is someone that lives by the Bible. And so, like we're saying, if you're not doing these things, if you're doing the exact opposite of what Christ said, you can't call yourself a Christian. And it's the same with so with the trans stuff. It's like, well, a woman. It used to be a woman is this, and then it became no. Well, a woman can have a penis as well. It's like, well, I know a lovely woman, and she has she was born male, but she's a woman as much as a woman. It's like, okay, well, what you've done is you've expanded that definition
Yeah,
ad absurdum phrase to the point where it's like, so if anything can be a woman, then nothing is a woman, and
yeah,
it becomes meaningless. And it's the same with Christianity. It's just like, and the problem with this is this idea that self-identifying as anything, a Muslim, a Christian, it's seen as, well, how can you say, so this is a criticism that I think people will level at Christians will level at other Christians, and I'm sure it's the same in Islam. It's like, well, if I say, um, some I met this guy at a party. Um, I've got freaking loads of gay friends. I don't know why. Just they're drawn to me like a moth to a flame. And I was at this party, and one of my gay friends was like, "Oh, you've got to meet this guy. He's a Christian." And I met this guy, and um, the guy was in training to be a priest. I believe he was in a in the parish and living as part. I don't know how it works, but he was like living on site as the priest in training. And but he was going out on like Grindr didn't exist then, but the equivalent, and just basically going absolutely mental every night, um, just sleeping with everyone and anything. And my friend who introduced me, like the reason he did, it was like, look, a Christian can be like this because this guy is.
yeah.
And I'm like, okay,
Your
um,
definition of it is wrong then.
yes, exactly. But the problem is that the worst thing you can say is, well, if I said, okay, look, a Christian is someone who follows Christ. If you don't follow Christ, you're not a Christian. So it doesn't matter what you call yourself. It's like
Yeah,
but the worst thing you can say is, if I'd said, oh, well, that guy's not really a Christian, it's like sacrilege. It's like, how dare you say that someone isn't a Christian? That's for them to decide. And it's the same with Islam. But the
not
but the
really.
problem is this, and the way I always talk about it is with veganism. Like if someone identifies as a vegan, but they eat meat, they're not a vegan. And
Yeah,
it's the same with Christianity. It's the same with Islam. If they're just saying, well, I'm a Muslim, but I basically live however I want to live. It's like, well, you can call yourself that. But I think that I think we're just really terrified at the moment of being like precise with our words and precise
yeah.
with our definitions.
we
And
we
so it
are
just,
we
oh,
seem afraid of definitions,
yeah,
right? So
definition is truth.
yeah.
Definition is boundaries, and we're like terrified of those.
And also, it seems like we are very afraid of having uncomfortable conversations, very afraid of having uncomfortable conversations, right? Which is alien to me because I've always had uncomfortable conversations while growing up. I had
Yeah.
many different friends from different faiths, and also different denominations within Islam, right? So even Muslims who were Ahmadis, who Muslims don't consider as Muslims, um, and then people don't know. Like the main reason is because in Islam, God is the Allah is the God. There's no God but Allah, and the last prophet is Prophet Muhammad. And Ahmadis believe that you can have prophets after Prophet Muhammad,
Right.
right?
Okay.
And they believe in those prophets because they believe that there can't be any law changing prophets, so they can't change the text that
Yeah.
much, but they are
Yeah.
still. So that's why Muslims don't believe in them. But anyways, I still had them, and we had, we used to smoke weed and just have very deep conversations with each other. And I was always that sort after I left Islam as well, or while I was leaving Islam. Actually, that's
Mm.
when we were having the most intense conversations, because I was in that plane of you know not wanting to detach from something higher than myself, but also trying to find something to relate to. And I read Bible in that time. I read, some Hindu texts as well, Bhagavad Gita as well, and I read like other things just to see the sense of what is actually there. And for me, it was this is why, like, I don't push the Christian agenda that much, right? Because in my head I know I'm using Christianity as a utility, and I think so that's wrong to do, but I still do it because I've been thinking, like, if people see something as a utility in a materialistic world, right, or in a very atheistic sort of oriented world, um people will only go for things once they see the utility of something. So at least when people start seeing the utility of Christianity, maybe it will open the door for them
Yeah.
to ask more questions and go more deep into it. And maybe by doing that, I'm opening my own door. Maybe I'm projecting myself as well. It could be
Mm.
a lot of such reasons, right? So,
Yeah.
but it's sort of like I keep it as a personal journey, because once I start saying it out loud, people will start labeling me like, oh,
Yeah.
so you are a Christian then, oh, you are not a
Yeah. Yeah.
Christian.
Yeah.
So it's like, I just want to
Yeah.
be like, but I just see the utility of things.
Well, unquestionably, that's what's been happening in the I don't you probably can't call it the IDW anymore, but like let's just call it the heterodox ideological
Yeah.
discourse, whatever. Um,
Influencers unite.
yeah, all that stuff. Um, that's clearly what's been happening in the last few years,
Hmm.
and I don't think you need to be a Christian to observe it. It's
Yeah.
like not everyone. I'm prone to exaggeration, but
Yeah.
so many people are starting to see, well, the utility of Christianity,
Christianity. As in,
Christianity
you have just
is
declared a new denomination.
yes, um, the utility of it is, it's really coming through. I feel like so many conversations we're
Yeah.
having on trigonometry are reflective of that. People saying, look, I mean, when we had Douglas Murray on, not the last time, but the time before, he was saying, look, you know, if you if you look at the outcomes of people that are Christians, and not just like once a year Christians, but actually Christians living out, it's like their outcomes are better in like every by every metric,
Yeah.
and when he was on Ryan Long's podcast, they were like, "Oh man, like how do you be happy, man?"
Yeah.
And Douglas Murray's like, "Do you want to know how to be happy?" And he was like, "You need to become a Christian."
Yeah.
So something like that,
Yeah.
because it's like Christians are the happiest.
Yeah.
But like in terms of all these metrics, but it's not just that. It's just it's the utility in many ways. But the argument I would make is that um, you know it's it's actually true, and that's why it's
Mm.
useful.
Well,
Um,
you have to, I would expect you to, right? So
of
this is
course,
the problem that I have with the priest, that I agree with Calvin Robinson a lot on those things, right? So I might not agree with him theologically, right? Because that would mean that I am a Christian if I agree with him,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
I have to disagree with him in those terms. But I like him for that reason, because he's unashamedly Christian,
yes,
right? And he
yes,
goes by the text. So I know him to be an honest person in that regard. No matter if you want to agree or disagree with the man, or the entirety of the man, but I know him through that to be an honest person. I don't see these priests as honest, because you're trying to accommodate so much that you've diluted what is meant to be you. The
yeah.
same thing that has happened to liberalism, that they have diluted themselves, but they were open to these things anyways.
Could
um
I just go back to something that you said? You were
mm,
talking about your next door neighbor who's definitely a prostitute.
Yes, he is
um,
now.
um, so there's a really interesting thing about that. Obviously, like Christ is known for his associations with people that the rest of
Hmm.
society
Very
wouldn't have
good point.
associated themselves with.
Hmm.
Mary Magdalene was a prostitute. But there's a famous story in the Gospels where this woman is caught in the act of adultery and she's dragged in front of Christ, and they're like, oh, should we stone her, or whatever. And famously, he says, he who is without sin cast the first stone. And
Yeah.
then he shows mercy and compassion to her. But do you know what he says to her after that? Like when everyone's dropped their stones and walked away,
I don't remember. Go on.
he says, "Go and sin no more." And this
Yes,
is our
such a
problem
good point.
because we are like it's like what the Christians now, well, not the Christians, the one you're having a problem with, they're
Yeah.
doing. They're like,
Keep
"Let's
sinning
stop
and
it
just come
there.
back.
Let's
Yeah.
stop it there." Like,
Yeah.
and this is the thing. It's like, no, Christ didn't say, actually, you've got an empowering lifestyle as a sex worker or
Yeah.
whatever it was, and these guys just don't get it because it's 2,000 years ago, and they need to get with the program and be more progressive. He actually said, "Look, what you're doing is wrong. Don't do it anymore." And this is the fundamental problem because the Bible describes Jesus as being full of grace and truth, and we're kind of like because we've been absolutely, as I say, we've lost confidence in the truth of the gospel. We're just now relying on this kind of weird rubbish version of what we think is grace. We're like, oh,
Yeah.
let's just be gracious and kind. It's like, no, grace has to be married to truth, or it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Um, so
It's sort of
no,
like we are going, like there's some original text and we going by the validity of the text or the what that text means based on the movie that's made on that text, right? So we think like the Lord of the Rings movies are actually the text or the Rings of Power, right? That is
right?
more detached now.
Yeah,
And we
yeah,
think
yeah,
like, oh, that's what Tolkien said. It's like, no, 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 that's not what he said. You may do
yeah,
that, but that does not explain the original
yeah.
things.
And ironically, so it's incumbent upon Christians to read their Bible.
Yeah.
But what's ironic is that both of us are saying to be true followers of the religion, we need to go back to the text. Because of the bad coding problem,
Yes,
I would
this
I
is
would
why I
make an
talk about
argument
Islam.
is that if you go back to the text with Islam, you're gonna get bad outcomes. Sorry, but I just think that's true.
No,
If you
you
go
will
back
be
to the
Islamist or a
text,
jihadist.
yeah, well,
That's what I'm
exactly,
saying. Yeah,
exactly, exactly.
Muhammad was a jihadi. So
Yeah, but if you go back to the text and you fully live that out as a Christian, then you're getting the exact opposite.
mhm,
And it, in my view, good coding. So for me, it's like, yeah, it's incumbent upon Christians to read the Bible, to know what the Bible teaches,
yeah,
because there's a million voices out there saying, "Oh, this is how to be a Christian," or "You could be a Christian like this," and it's like, no, we have a book. It's like this wide. You can read it. Like
yeah,
you can read it in your language, and also it's not that you can just read it to learn how to be a good person and like keep the rules. Like it will. It's a love story. It will set your heart on fire. Like you will be overcome by the amazingness of God, and you will learn things about him that you're like, I did not know God was like that. That's shocking.
yeah.
Shocking is probably one of the words that comes to my mind so much when we talk about God. Like if you actually get to know what his personality is, he's shocking in his tenderness, grace, kindness, but also his integrity and his I mean, I could go on about it for
It
ages.
has to be something. I know, he has to be right. He has to be an unreasonable character, right? He has to be something out of our understanding for him to be him, right? So
Yeah.
if he's of our understanding, then he's us, then he's not him, sort of
Yeah.
that's how I understand the concept of God. Which is why I had a problem. Another of the problem that I had with Allah was because he was very practical and he was very reasonable and he was giving you guide of how to overcome your enemies and stuff, and I was
Right.
like, well, you're being reasonable. You're allowing people to lie, like, because you can lie if your life is in danger, and I didn't
Oh,
agree
really?
with that. I was like, well, no, God should be like, I don't care, don't lie. You're not
Yeah.
going to lie. If you lie, you're sinning. And then you
Yeah. Well, that's
lie
what
to
the
the
Christian
thing
God is
was
like.
like, it was like you lie to save
Yeah.
your life, and then you repent and you seek salvation for it, right? Because it's an like, it has to be a god that doesn't understand you, that is giving you expectation beyond your means as well, so that
mm,
you'll spend your life striving for something good, and in that strive, in that pursuit, you live a good life, sort of a thing, of how I understand it. But I think so, like, even beyond Christianity, there's there's a reason why we are seeing a shift in people's mentality. And Christianity is, I think so, Christianity is more relevant. Obviously you would disagree because you believe it to be true, right?
mm,
I think so Christianity is more relevant in the West because it is the most dominant religion. But I've seen that same need for revival in India as well, of Hindu faith and stuff like that.
mm,
It's a revival of the concept of that there is something more than us, because we have gone down this materialistic route so much, right? That its
mm,
manifestation, endpoint manifestation, has been the woke ideology,
mm,
where, like, why shouldn't a man be a woman? Like, if
mm,
all we are just atoms in this, like, whatever, we have no reason, then why shouldn't there be lady dicks, like, whatever, who cares? And,
mm,
I'm just living my life, who are you to say, sort of a thing, right? And this is
mm,
the point where people have started realizing it. And I'm seeing a lot of resurgence within India as well, where they're saying, no, 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 we have a faith that tells us how to be. It is a very liberal faith in more circumstances, like the Hindu religion,
mm.
but it has certain precepts and stuff, and we need to follow it. And
Yeah.
people are trying to reject woke on those terms and stuff.
Mm,
So this is why I see, like, there is a utility of Christianity in that sense, where people and utility of older religions, and to each culture, to each people, their own sort of a thing.
yeah.
Because that's how you get relevance through generations and generations of teachings and stuff. Is
Yeah, but to
because
what end? Like, so this is like, I totally get what you're
Hmm,
saying, and if I weren't a Christian and if I weren't religious,
yeah, but
I would say the
that's
same thing as you,
yeah,
which is that all we have is utility, all we have
yeah.
is to
But
create the best, like,
this is what
outcomes.
we're here to talk about, right? So after
Yeah.
52 minutes, that's what we're going to talk about.
Well, it's funny, like, you wrote, a Substack article,
Oh, thank you
and,
for reading.
yeah, it's alright. I didn't actually say I'd read it, but, no, I did read it, and, I screen grabbed this because I thought this is an interesting quote. Imagine if I just couldn't find it now, that would be a letdown.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll
Um,
play the elevator music now.
yeah. Do, 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 do. You can cut this out, right? I literally, why is this happening to me? Screen grabs. Um, okay, it's gone. That's annoying. Basically, you let's edit that out. No, you said
Dude,
something
that's the best
you
part.
said something along the lines of, and you'll have to, correct me if I'm wrong. You said something like, "The West needs to wake up. It doesn't know what to wake up for."
Mm,
And it's like, you need to have a reason. Like, I thought that's interesting because, yes, the West needs to wake up, but to what?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's okay. Yes, we've got off course, but what's the right course? And obviously, I think it's Christianity, but it's not because of its utility. Um, and it's interesting. You were saying earlier about, when you were in school and after 9/11 and the celebration after that. Um, and the interesting thing that occurred to me when you said that is that people celebrate terrible things and people can do terrible things. And, you know, any look at history, or, yeah, you think about the Holocaust and you think about how is it that a nation went along with these ideas, or, the Holocaust it's a bit trite, I think, to just use Nazi Germany as, like, it always gets used as an example.
yeah,
But it is that classic thing of, it's only a few generations ago, and, like, people just went along with things, and it's like, okay, we've got people, celebrating terrorist attacks, we've got this, that, and the other. It's like, what is the the problem isn't that, oh, we just got a bad book that's spawned this. There is a heart problem here. The problem is, so it's interesting. People were celebrating death, and you were looking around saying like innocent people have died. So there's a coding problem, a bad coding problem, I think, with the human heart, which is the kind of what Christianity would call original sin, or like the fallenness of the human heart, which is that it's not like it's an aberration that bad things happen or people follow bad things. It's like that there is a problem with the human heart. Like there's evil in the human heart. And it's not this, we're not these kind of Rousseauian nobles, savages that are like born pristine and perfect, and then society, or capitalism, whatever, corrupts
Yeah,
us.
I
It's
agree
like
with that. That
you
we are
do,
not.
okay.
That we are not. Because I used to believe that we are born good and that religion makes us bad or ideologies makes us bad dependent on the ideology, or they make us good dependent on that. But I've changed my mind on that a bit by sort of
Mm,
like, because I've recognized it even in my own silly stories that I'm writing and stuff like that. I recognize my characters have that they are not born good, and then they seek good and they make that choice, because being good is a choice.
yes,
Because
sir.
once you make a choice, then you have to work towards it. If you're
Mm,
already good, then you don't have to do anything for it, right?
mm,
And then that's what, if you're not working for something, then you're not achieving anything, and you're not going to embody whatever it is supposed to be then, because it's just
mhm,
given to you. It's just like
mm,
we can see like people are just kept on getting the benefits and stuff, and they just like have universal basic income, and they're just sitting at home and doing things, they're not working for that money, so they don't just gonna do good things out of it. Like, you have to work towards it. So that's what my mentality has becomes like. There's a reason why religions were made. We have an inclination towards doing the wrong or bad things,
yeah.
and it was a way to guide us, to tell us. That's why every religion has a bad, an evil, a Satan that is warning you against. And most of the time it is the Satan in your heart that is warning you against, so that you
Mm,
guard against it, and you work your socks off to make sure that you're a good person. And that goes back to the virtues of Aristotle, right? So according to Aristotle, the virtue was not just automatic to you. You had to work towards it, right? So if you
mm,
had, according to him, if you had to be if you wanted to be generous, you had to go out every day and give some money to the poor, even
mm,
when you didn't want to. You have to practice that every day,
mm.
till it became your second nature,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
virtue is not something that you inherit. Some virtue is something that you have to work towards.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I think that's the best that you can get to if there isn't a God. But what I would say is that, I mean, famously, the final words of the Buddha were, "Strive without ceasing." Like that's how you attain, your destiny of the goodness that you're pursuing.
Yeah,
But some of the final words of Christ on the cross are, "It is finished," and that's a major distinction because Christianity, as I say, what you just said is kind of like to strive and to make routines and like habits out of virtue. That is, as I said, that's something to be lauded.
yeah,
But what really is what people need is uh, it to the fire of the desire to do those good things and those virtuous things to be in your heart, because we are emotionally driven
yeah, yeah,
animals at the end of the day. I'm not saying we're animals, but we are creatures and we are affected by emotion. And so when I say that Christ said it is finished, he in what he did at the cross, he has the power to make people uh, new and to give them a new life and a new heart, so that the desires to do those virtuous things are written on your heart, and so that starts coming out as a natural overflow, and people do start to. do all the things that make Britain great. But like, the church was, the one that founded like education. They built the orphanages.
Yeah,
They did all the charities and all that kind of stuff. It was like now a lot of it is like we handed it to the state. Um, but that came out of that place of not just like, oh, we need to keep the rules. It's proactive. It's proactive good. It's proactive creation of good and spreading of those things in the world, rather than just, well, I'll just not drink so that I don't go to hell.
yeah.
And I don't mean to mischaracterize it. Um, and so I think that's really a key
But
distinction there as well.
like going back to my Substack, I don't know which one it is now, but I think so. I was saying,
It was the urgent one that you said. You retweeted it yesterday as well. I think it was a bit
it's
older.
like the final call sort of a thing. It
Yes,
was sort of like we have to give people something to fight for. We can't just expect people to fight
yeah.
against something.
Though
It
interestingly, you didn't offer the thing for which we should fight.
uh,
I unashamedly offer it,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. But
you're
you know
working it
what
out.
what my thinking around that is, obviously, because I've said before as well, I'm aware I'm using Christianity as a utility, and I'm aware that that's the wrong thing to do. That's why my advocacy for it is not as strong as just right now at that stage where I am, right? So
Yeah.
I will only advocate up to that point, and that's being honest, right?
Yeah, you're trying to have integrity with it, and I appreciate that.
Exactly. So, but my thing is like, wake people up first. Now people are
Mm.
awake. People are in majority awake. Now we
Yeah.
need to start showing them a path, right?
Yeah.
And this is where
Yeah.
I want to combine with people. It's like I have some ideas of how to do it, but we need to start doing it. But what my problem with Arc
Yeah.
was not the Christian bend or anything like that. It's again a global way of understanding where we should go, and I disagree with that. I think that is the root of the problem, that we have made West or even Anglosphere into one entity, right?
Mm.
It should be according to the lands and according to the people, according to the nation where they go. So there should be a British arc only, where it relates more to the people in Britain, that we go back to the values, culture, and traditions of Britain, where people who are Christian or who are even pagan can um, sort of sense a oneness towards it, and then you let it happen, right? Because you can't enforce Christianity on people.
No.
You have to make the environment conducive so that people would choose it willingly, right?
Yeah.
But
Well,
at the same time, I don't want the country to burn. If like, I don't want it to be to a point like either it's Christianity or everyone burns sort of a thing. So
yeah.
in my mind, it's very urgent to not just wake people up, but give them something to fight for.
Yeah.
So give them initial things to fight for, like, the love of their country, the love of their community, the love of their family and stuff. Like, bring those
Yeah.
loves back into people. Tell them like, these are your lands, these are your ancestral lands, your people have fought for these lands one way
Yeah.
or another, whatever it might be. And then through that they will find Christ, if they are so inclined to do so. But at
I
this
don't.
point in my head, if I give them, it would be dishonest for me to just say that, because
Yeah.
I don't accept Christ, right? And B, I think so is going to just put people off, and is going to make it at a, at this point, it's like, either they're gonna go the other way, that they're gonna go to the transhumanism way. It's like, well, what does it matter? I think so. The fastness of our experimentation into AI is because of that missing coding, in us. That's why we're
Mm.
going more towards AI. It's like, well,
Yeah.
like, let's go to the next stage, because I can't bear to be in this stage. I can't bear to
Yeah.
work on myself in this stage. Let's go to the next stage really quickly. you
Yeah.
know that's
Yeah.
what I think. But I don't know. I'm trying to
But what,
discover along with people, but I
why is
just
it important to you though that we should be able, like, why is this kind of nationalism? I'm not calling you a nationalist, but why
mm,
is this nationalism so high up in your priorities?
um
Like, I'm not saying that we should. Actually, no, you answer the question.
yeah, I'm not I'm not per se like nationalist as such,
Yeah.
but I want people to be knowing of themselves. I want people to know their people, their community and stuff. I think when you
It,
disconnect people from it, and I think because I've felt it in myself as well, right? I have a different situation where I wasn't accepted where I was, so I had to reject my entire tribe, not just my religion, but my whole association, and be loyal to another tribe, right? And give
mm,
all my loyalty to that tribe. But I know this instinctively, right? Even when you go to the basic thing as eating something, right? So when we have started eating foods which are not natural to our lands where we have grown up and our ancestral lands and stuff like that, we get a
mm,
lot of diseases,
mm,
right? We eating tomatoes when tomatoes are not supposed to be in this country, right? We're not eating the seasonal sort of a thing, right?
mm,
Because that's natural to us of how the land, the nature takes care of the people where they have been accustomed living in, right? The religions and the thoughts that come out of those areas are natural again to those people then.
I would disagree,
Of
and
course
I
you
think,
would, because you're Christian, because
but
Christian is the message of.
it's not just that. It's like the things that make Britain great. I'm not saying it's all down to Christianity, and obviously there is. I think I actually it is nice to see how much you love this country, and would that more people did. But I don't. It almost seems a bit relativistic to me, almost as though, it doesn't matter what culture you're in. Let's just kind of celebrate that culture. It's like, okay, that's a nice idea in England, where England has been shaped by some of the, most amazing and best ideologies or truths that are out there. But it's like this idea that, well, uh, religion exists to as a tool to facilitate a good sort of sense of national belonging. I think that's putting the cart
No,
before
no,
the
no,
horse.
no. That's why I'm not this is the reason why I sort of stopped leaning on Christianity as much, because I don't think
Yeah,
so. I think this is the reason I am allergic to Christian nationalists in America as well, because I don't think so. These two things should mix. You know, your nationhood and other things can change because they are worldly things. Okay, those are
yeah,
your things in this world that you relate to one another. These are meant to change or can change if you don't take care of those things. Your
yeah,
relationship with God or gods or however is your spiritual side. These two
mm,
things, when you mix them, you get bad outcomes.
mm,
I'm trying
yeah,
to bring people together on the basis of the nation. And I would
yeah,
like other people to bring people together on the basis of spirituality. I can't inhabit that space at that moment because
yeah,
I am
fair.
not, I won't be honest with it, right? So my spirituality is sort of like I put myself beyond the religion. I do recognize that all religions, right? I do recognize that there's something, right? Because I can't deny it forever.
Mm,
I've always felt that something, I've always interacted with that something at certain points,
yeah,
but for me in my head is beyond religion. It's beyond
mm,
any human understanding. And that's
yeah,
why I put myself beyond that, right? So,
yeah,
but I don't want, I don't, myself, I don't want a religion to interrupt what phase I'm going through, right? To
mm.
heavily influence what phase I'm going through in my own personal life. That's why I don't lean on one or another.
But why is that phase more important than what might theoretically be true?
It might be true, right?
Well,
That's
I'm
the
just
thing.
saying, yeah,
Yeah,
okay, but I'm just saying, to me, it's these things, they all feel like the wrong way round. It's like, I don't want religion to get in the way of this, that, and the other. It's okay. I get that you're not a believer, but you're presupposing that, let's say that you explore religion
yeah,
and you find one that you actually think is true, not useful, but actually
yeah,
true. It's like, well, you would want to draw as near to the truth and live that out as much as possible.
yeah.
I would think, to live an authentic life. And but this idea of it, of, well, the most important thing is, and I'm not saying this is what you're thinking, but you tell me,
Hmm.
this idea that, well, I want to explore the phase that I'm in and like discover who I am and sort of express that. It's like, what? Why is that more important than pursuing like truth?
No, it's not important, right? So it is, for me it's not more important, but this is why I'm not expressing it, because at this time I don't want to express what I am going through personally, because
Yeah,
once I start expressing it out loud to people, that will
yeah,
influence it, right? So if I start expressing it out loud, and if I'm around only one particular religion and stuff, I don't know if it can be authentic, because maybe I am in that stage where I'll just latch on to anything, right? So
right,
I'm
okay.
guarding
Quite
myself.
self-aware.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just making myself that I need to be self-aware, that there's things that I'm going like in motions, and that is
Yeah.
also I'm aware because I don't know how my if I've said anything about this before, but because since I was diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago, that
Mm.
has changed the way that I think as well. Obviously, it does, right? So I'm guarding against that as well. I don't want my personal circumstances to come in between my trying to search for the real, the actual truth, you know. And there's a
Mm.
concept of, there's something like, because in my family we've had a lot of Sufis and stuff, right?
Sufis.
Yeah, Sufis are a sect of Islam that depend that go a lot towards spirituality, and they accept other religions a lot as
Okay.
well, and they are like self discovery sort of people.
Right.
And we have had a lot of those people as well in our family, so I know it's something that is inherently in me through those ancestors of mine and stuff. And there's a concept of there's also a concept of wali in Islam, which is like someone who's outside of religion but is within religion as well, and he communes, or he or she communes with God, like in
Mm.
that sort of sense. I have a soul that I recognize, which is in similar to that. Not, I'm not comparing myself to those people, because those, obviously, I reject Islam, so I would not. But even within Islam, they are supposed to be very, very highly spiritual people. And for me to want to attach myself to them would be like me being very egoistic of myself, right? So I have that sort of a soul. So it's like that's why I'm letting it discover itself. So in
Sure.
that meantime, I know that we need something, right? And that's what I'm trying to get at to people. Like, we can't keep on going like this. We can't. I hate the materialistic world that people are inhabiting more and more, because we are not connecting with each other. We
Mm.
have lost that human connection with each other. More and more we're just becoming too individualistic. We're not concerned with families. When we're not concerned with families, we're not going to be concerned with communities. When we're not concerned with
Mm.
communities, we won't be concerned with nations, and we're
Mm.
just making everything like a Star Trek sort of fantasy, which I love Star Trek, but
I
it's
love
a
Star
I
Trek.
love it. Captain, I drink Earl Grey because of Captain
Earl Grey
Picard.
hot.
Yeah, yeah. I'm addicted to Earl Grey because of Picard, right? So, but
Oh,
I know that is a fantasy, right? And that's the recognition of it. But I just don't like the way that we live, because it seems to me it's a life without soul. It's a
mm.
life without, even if you believe in a soul or not, right?
Yeah.
It's a
Without
meaningless life.
dignity.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Well, I've been thinking about this a lot. Sorry, I
yeah, yeah, go on.
interrupted. No, I've just been thinking about this a lot because I speak to a lot of young people. And when I say young people, I mean like I don't know, 20 or whatever. Um, and it's strange. Like, okay, so when you and I grew up, you're a little bit older than me, but we at least there was this kind of, I don't know, foundation of human beings are intrinsically have intrinsic worth and they have dignity and their lives are worth preserving and stuff. And I feel like the message that young people are getting growing up now is basically you are a blight on the planet. You're someone who is taking resources, and you're really an animal that is well. they love animal rights, but it's kind of like, "Don't have children," "We don't need more mouths to feed on this earth that we're destroying," and whether or not, the climate stuff, let's just put that aside entirely. The idea that what people are getting is, well, you're just kind of this animal, this machine sort of wandering around consuming things, and also there's no real story of your life. There's no creation, there's no purpose, there's no higher meaning to any of it. You just kind of go out there and make it. And I was talking to, actually, he's here right now, the producer for Trigonometry, Elliot, young sweet Elliot.
Hello, Elliot.
And um he's behind the camera, trying to make me look good.
That's where he should be.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Know your place, my sweet. But I had this conversation with him, you'll have to correct me if it's wrong, Elliot. But we were talking about meaning, and it's like, well, I think you kind of said, Elliot, it's either, there's God, there is a higher meaning. We're not just this material stuff, or it's nihilism. Like, those are the two choices. And it's like, because if you want to be consistent, I mean, I know that the vast majority of people are able to kind of live with the cognitive dissonance of feeling like, I don't know that I'm created or here for a reason. I'm just here, but I'm going to do what I enjoy. But if you want to really be philosophically consistent, it is kind of like, there is this kind of thing of, okay, is there meaning, or am I just do I is there no meaning, and then is it nihilism, or is there something I can do, another way of working out? And it's a very difficult
Yeah.
situation to put young people in, but certainly for the most part, the message they're getting is not good. And so yeah, I really feel sorry for these young people, but I think is if this this is why I think it is so important to rediscover, like, whether there's a God or not. Because for me, and I always say this, and my friends are sick of me saying it, but everything is theological. Like, every debate, every question, every moral philosophical question is theological. Everything comes back to, is there a God or not?
Yeah.
Like, or rather, let's say, is there a, like, are we just floating around meaninglessly, or is there like a meaning and a purpose to the world? And I think most people, actually, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think that most people feel like there is a higher meaning to their self. They feel like they've got a soul. They feel like everything isn't just a kind of it's just a kind of random collision of atoms and stuff and chemicals that are making me think this way. I think people think that, but there's I'd almost call it a bit of a gaslighting going on, which is like, well, everything seems meaningful to you. It seems that way, but really it's just illusory. And I feel like that sense of there being a meaning and intrinsic sort of worth to humanity uh, has been there and has facilitated a lot of the creation of the stuff that we love in the West, because it's come out from that place of, no, human beings have dignity and worth, and we need to preserve that, and we need to look after people and all of these great
Yeah.
things. You take that away and people are lost,
Yeah,
and I feel
this is
sorry for
the
them.
thing is, that the message that I see that the people are getting is mixed message as well. Because on one hand, it's saying that we are a disease, a plague on this world, right? And
Mm,
the other hand, we're saying you're the avatar of yourself, and you can make anything of yourself, use as many resources as you want, and play out your life. It's your
yeah,
life.
yeah.
Be whoever you
And the
are.
greatest thing you can do is discover who you are
Yeah,
inside,
it's sort of
but
like,
also
yeah, but
you should probably die.
that's really not what I'm saying, though, right?
I know you're
Yeah.
not saying that.
What I'm yeah, what I'm trying, I think
By
so
the way, none of that was aimed at you.
no,
I
no, no,
was
no,
thinking
no,
about the
because
young
you're
people.
making me think, right? So is good. So I can talk as I, think as well. I think so it's awakening is that there is something out there.
Mm.
Now, if people are Christian, they're going to, obviously they have to, right? They have to almost say that there is the only way. Christ is the only way, right?
But they say that because it's not that way round. It's not that they have to say that because they're Christian. It's like they say that like they're Christian and therefore they say that. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
It's like I'm not. It's this. I'm not. I haven't been told to say this, and because I'm a Christian, I don't really believe it, but I have to say it
No, no,
because I'm a
because you
Christian.
have come to that discovery, and that's why you become Christian, right?
Yeah,
Right? But this is the thing, like,
I've become a Christian, and therefore I'm seeing things through that lens.
yeah,
Yeah.
and this is another point as well. So if we just have people be Christian, then they will come at it from the other way around. People have to discover it, right?
Yes.
So, but the thing is, I want people to wake up to that point that there is something out there. Now, if you think it's Christ, or if you come to that realization it's Christ, then you
Mm.
become Christian and you embody that, uh, the life, right? If you
Yeah.
think that's Buddha, then you go towards that. If you think that's, whatever, Ram with Hinduism, you go towards that. But there is something out there, right?
Mm.
It's not just us. Even if you are an atheist, right, you have to understand that there is a connection, right? Because my atheism, after I left that angry phase after leaving Islam, was always
Mm.
like, we're not alone. There's an importance between human connection, right? I don't think that any of the gods of the religion are true, but I believe that there is something out there that I can't understand, that I have a relation to, right?
Mm.
And
Mm.
that love could be like among my people, like among the people or stuff like that, in accordance with it. But it's that feeds my soul, sort of a thing, that love, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not just me individual. I can't be just individual. So i've
Yeah.
always
Sure.
i've always been a good Samaritan in that sense, that I always help other people out, because that's my religion, in a
Mm.
sense. Like, my fellow
Yeah.
human beings and taking care of them is sort of my religion then. And it's always
Yeah.
been, even before I was Muslim, or after I've been, like, even as an atheist. And the more that I saw this nihilistic, materialistic outlook of atheists growing more and more and more,
Mm.
that's when I started distancing myself from them. Because, like, you're not serving a higher purpose, like, beyond yourself. Even if you don't believe in God, it's not conducive for a social animal to live individual lives.
Yeah.
It's illogical. And for
Yeah.
me, that's why the atheistic life, the individualistic, atheistic, materialistic life becomes illogical. Because it's
Yeah.
like, well, it's not going to benefit us. Let's even imagine, like, and that's when I come to the point of using even religion as a utility. Because once you start
Yeah.
using it, then you might find the truth. But that's not how you should go about it. But
Yeah. I think you're in the position that so many people are finding
yeah,
themselves in at the moment. And actually, we've just recorded an interview with Alex O'Connor, Cosmic Skeptic.
yeah,
It hasn't dropped yet, but it's, in my opinion, one of our best interviews that
yeah,
we've done, and certainly for a long time, and very, very timely. And they're trying to thrash this out.
yeah,
Konstantin is, I guess, putting, he's not, I think he's in a similar sort of place as you, actually, sort of like post-atheist in that way, but sort of thinking that there's more. But,
yeah,
who am I to say where KK's at with that? But that's what it looks like from the outside, and he's trying to put those things to Alex. And you say, it's illogical, and I I would disagree. I actually think it is quite logical. The conclusions that Alex O'Connor gets
okay,
to, I really respect him, and I like the way his mind works because I think he is logically consistent. But the problem, but as I say, everything's theological.
yeah,
So, for like, if there is no God, I think Alex, in terms of his understanding, goes as far as one can go. But the question is, again, everything comes down to, is is there a God? What's he like? This is why the person of Christ is so important to look at, because it's very hard to investigate the kind of this idea, this kind of really broad, abstract idea of, is there a kind of spiritual realm, and the old ancient stories. That's very hard to look at. But the person of Christ is deliberately easy to look at. He has the benefit of being a secure historical figure. We can look at his the writings about him and know that's what he said. Historians don't quibble about that anymore.
yeah,
It's like we know that these are good historical texts. Not to say that then it's not like that means that everything if it said that Jesus, you know, said this, it doesn't mean it's true, but it is what,
Yeah.
his teachings are the legit. So we can look at that. We can actually look at him, and we can analyze, is he who he said he is? And there's this classic thing that Christians say, that when you're looking at Christ, um, he's either, liar, lunatic, or Lord. So, like, he's either someone that comes out and is actually lying, and he knows he's not God, but he's just sort of doing it because for some kind of reason he's lying, and sort of, or even a noble lie, like, well, this is good for humanity, so I'm just going to tell people on this because, so he's a charlatan, or he's a lunatic, like he's actually mental, like the kind of person who thinks that he's the Messiah, and there are these people,
Yeah.
or he is actually who he said he is. But there is no grounds for him just being a kind of um, good moral teacher.
Yeah.
You can't just say that about him. He's either, liar, lunatic, or Lord. And because of the fact that he is a physical person walking around in a physical space and time, we've got his teachings. Like, we can actually investigate that. And that's why I'm always like, you know, saying to people, and I obviously I'm preaching a little bit now, but why wouldn't I if I think it's true
But
and
that's the
good?
thing as well, isn't it? Like, this is people have a problem with these things, right? And this is why most of the atheists have started like disagreeing with me on that as well. But I'm just telling them, like, I have to preach, right? Like, whatever I think it is. Now you would disagree with me on a lot of those things because you're a Christian and you would preach Christianity, right? Because
Mhm.
if you're not confirmed in your own existence and in your own convictions and stuff, then obviously that's when you're not going to preach at all, you know. And this is the thing that I'm preaching right now about this, is making people realize, like, we can't have interfaith bullshit. We can't just accept people who are diametrically opposed to us. I'm saying that because I want people to understand, so where are we going from here? Let's
Mm,
have those uncomfortable conversations. Where
mm,
are we going as a country, right? So a lot of people, some people are comfortable with Christianity, some people would not be comfortable with Christianity. But even leaving the spiritual side apart, even if you say that you're materialistic atheist and stuff like that, where are we going as a nation then,
mm.
where your materialistic world could be safe as well, right?
Yeah.
That's not with Islam. And it's not
No.
Islamist and it's not jihadis. And I know a lot of people have Muslim friends. And I know Konstantin also has a lot of Muslim friends and stuff, and he would be uncomfortable saying those things. Uh, it is not Islamist. It's not Islamism. It is Islam. So we
Yeah.
have to recognize that if we want Britain to remain Britain, where are we going?
Yeah.
America
I've got
has their
something.
own issues, right? This is why I have a problem with globalist way of looking at our problems, because we're just creating another form of WEF then, right? The sentimentalities
Yeah.
of Britain are different to other even other Anglosphere, to French, to other Europhiles. It's very different. So the
Yeah.
solutions for us are going to be different, right? The problems that we're going to face are going to be different. You know, we need to stop allowing, like, Sharia laws and stuff like that to even
Yeah.
have Sharia councils in our country and stuff. We have to come to a point where we have to realize we can't have mosques because they stand as a point to our, yeah. And that's a very uncomfortable situation, right?
Yeah.
Because then
That goes further even than I would go because, as I say, that injunction is very important in Christianity. Like, if someone's not a Christian, you know, you can't stop them from building their place
but
of
this is this
worship.
is my problem with it, right? That is true for every other religion. Now, is it I'm biased because I need to check this as well, right? So I'm trying to understand this as well. Is my hatred for Islam just because I'm an ex-Muslim, right? Because that happens a lot, right? Am I just
Yeah.
scorned? That's why I'm so against it. I just I don't think so, because I've been indifferent to Islam for a very long time, and I that's why I haven't been speaking about it, because I'm just, for me, it's, I disregarded it.
Mm.
But it's the same as communism, right? You can't have that liberal attitude that, oh
No,
yeah,
but
but
no, but
it's,
we allow people to have communist clubs and stuff in this
and
country.
what it leads to then, right?
Yeah,
And this
but
is my,
but we have to be okay with that. Like, this is the thing.
if you are okay with it, then they are going to, this is my problem, right? So I can't understand what to do with it if we allow that to happen. And that's bad coding. The whole point of communism is that it will take over, that it wants to take over the way that you govern yourself and impose itself. So, it's not just like them coming together for their, whatever lunches
Yeah,
and whatever whatnot. They have an end goal, and that's the same thing that I have with mosque. It's like they have an end goal, right? So the more they are going to be, the more they're going to realize the end goal, and then
yeah,
they're going to implement the end goal. So
yeah.
should we
But
focus more on Christianity then instead? And only are people who are confirmed in their convictions, right, or
yeah,
what they actually want, are going to implement such things.
Christianity is not a religion of compulsion,
Yeah,
and therefore we cannot,
exactly.
to create a society that says, well, you can't, let's say, live within these borders, and do these things. That doesn't sit with Christianity. But the interesting thing is, if you look at the time of Christ himself, you know, he, they were under the occupation of the Romans, and it's not that he was like, well, we need to get rid of. So interesting when the Apostle Paul went around evangelizing all these different places, he wasn't going around tearing down the gods and stuff of the local places he visited. In fact, he went to Ephesus in Turkey, and there was like a big old like revolt because people were like, this guy is preaching a different god. But then at the same time, people had to come out and say, look, he hasn't, he's not trying to destroy our gods. He's just preaching a different god. Um, and it's very difficult because we're now seeing things from totally different perspectives. Like your perspective, perhaps you're thinking, well, we can't allow Islam or communist stuff in this country because of what it leads to. But Christianity, or rather the kingdom of God, is different. The kingdom of God is not interested in the practical outcome of the best society that we can create. So if you look at the followers of Christ initially, pretty much most of them, like the disciples, the apostles, were martyred. And yes, they went around spreading the gospel, but the reason they did it wasn't so we can create the best kind of uh, happiest, most functioning societies. It's like we're not dealing with societal structures or national structures. We're dealing with the very real problem of this broken human heart that wants to have a relationship with God, but is broken. And so they're going around bringing that healing. So the kingdom of God, it's I know this sounds a bit out there and
Hmm.
stuff, but Christianity isn't primarily focused on let's bring about a nice society where we can all live and have good schools and good, mental health outcomes and all this stuff. That's a byproduct of a robust Christian society, but and it has created great things. But the idea really is the transformation of individual human
Hmm.
hearts. You see what I mean?
Yeah, but this is why I'm not leaning on Christianity as well, because I think so there's a danger, and I think so I'm not sure yet what's going to solve it, right? So I
Yeah.
think so there's there's a period of self discovery, or national discovery, that is going to solve it.
Yes.
So that's
Yes,
why
absolutely.
I'm more into the cultural movement of
Yeah.
reawakening people, and like coming together and celebrating what you have more. And in that period, because it's, I don't have answers, right? I
Yeah.
just want a space to be able to discover, so that
Sure.
they may be answers, so that it may give birth to people in that space who are
Yeah.
hell lot smarter than me, and who can, come up with these difficult situations, these uncomfortable
Yeah.
situations. Because
Yeah.
how I see the problem of communism in Islam is, is similar. They're totalitarian ideologies, and they want to completely change the way that you organize yourself as a society, and not just
by
as a
fiat.
society but as a people, right? As on
Yes.
personal level and societal level, right?
Mm.
And if we are to recognize evil for what it is, then it is our moral duty to go against evil and to fight against evil, no matter how uncomfortable it is. Now, how we
Yeah.
fight against it is not always has to be physical or whatnot. How we fight against it, that's what I want to discover as
Yeah.
well. Like, how do we fight against it? But at
I've got some really
Yeah, go on.
sorry. It's just that it occurred to me, I was like, "You should have said this earlier," but I've got, like, some really freaking good news,
Yeah.
which is that I can tell you on the ground, this is happening. Like, people are having, like, their lives transformed and coming to Christ. Like, it's a very strange time to be in the church, but I've never seen it like this. There are lots of young people coming turning up at church that never would have come before. Like, I've always been invited, you know, I'm, like, very passionate, but, like, I'm always inviting people to church. There's loads of people coming, loads, and every time I go, there's, like, new people in the church, there's young people, there's, um, young, unchurched, completely secular people, coming and, like, Gen Zers coming and converting to Christianity and absolutely loving it and having their lives transformed and like, feeling like they've really found this treasure.
Yeah.
And so, and but that's happening. Like, and that hasn't happened. It's a new thing. And so I think
But it's
that's a
a
real
Sophie,
encouragement to
but
me because that is happening.
that's a new thing for us, right?
It's brand
In
new,
this era,
but it's
it
happening.
has happened
Yeah.
before as well, many
Yeah.
times over,
Revivals.
right? But so this is my issue as well. Like, are those people doing it because they have been are they doing it because they've found the truth in Christ, or are they doing it because they are looking for just a community and stuff like that, or are they just doing it because everyone else has gone so mad that they need to find some
Yeah.
normalcy, right? And the reason why I'm saying it is
No, it's a very
y-
fair
the
point.
reason why I'm saying it is it's the same reason why, why we do anything, and our relationship with those ideas, then are they going to be that concrete that we continue with them, or are they just temporary, loosely binded, that we disconnect from
Yeah.
them? But that is obviously, that is for them to know, and for them and for Christ to know, right? So that is
Yeah.
not for me to judge.
But people can come in with, like, the motives of, like, "Hey, I just wanna find
But this is
community,"
this is
and
the
that you
point
do find
but
that.
this is the point that
But
I
but
was
then
trying
but
to
then they
make.
find more.
Yeah, but this is the point that I'm overall trying to make as well, like,
Yeah,
to understand the utility of it, right? So once they understand it and they come towards it, then they might find it or might not find the actual truth, or the not find the truth, or whatever it might be. But we
yeah,
have to create that space. That space is where I want to create, that even if you're not Christian, that you understand that it's better to live in that cultural space, right?
mm,
Whatever your personal connection with God is, that is
yeah,
different.
yeah,
But at least as a nation we can go back to it, right? Because the
yeah,
thing is, like, the other uncomfortable thing to realize as well is every other faith and every other people have been able to coexist up to some level in Britain.
mm,
There's only one that is creating issues, and it is out of fear of not being forthright with it. It is out of fear of, or lack of self conviction of most of the
mm,
British people, that they're not able to fully name it, and they're not
yeah,
able to fully recognize it, right?
yeah,
And this is my problem with it. Even communists and Marxists have been able to live within Britain without that much
yeah,
disruption, right? As
yeah,
before. But there's one faith that is causing issue, and there's a reason for it, right? There's a
yeah,
reason for it, that because that within that faith, peace on world will not come unless everyone is Muslim. It
yeah,
is incumbent on every single Muslim, not the priest, every single Muslim,
yeah,
to do what they can to spread the word of Allah. by
Yeah.
hook or by crook, they have to do it, right?
Yeah.
This is why it's like, you know what, like sometimes exclusion is necessary to conserve the society that you have. But again, it's sort of like, well, if you want to be here, then you play nice. If you know,
Yeah, I'm not saying that we shouldn't, like if people are glorifying, Hamas and terrorism and stuff like that. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying, oh, everyone should just be allowed to stay here, like, and that there's no boundaries. I'm just talking about, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of speech. I think even if we totally disagree or we think the coding is wrong, but I do think
but we have to stop
yeah, I
appeasing to
think the
anyone.
fundamental difference between us is I think we're in agreement. I just think that you kind of think that you keep saying
Yeah,
and I get the sentiment, but you keep saying, "Oh, we need to do something. We need to create this thing." And the thing is, I think that it needs to come. You think maybe like a top-down movement needs to happen, and I'm saying it's going to happen and already is bottom
yeah.
up.
I want bottom
Hearts
up.
are
I don't want top
transformed.
down.
I
Yeah,
know you
yeah,
do, but I'm just saying it can happen
yeah,
and will happen and it is
yeah.
happening. Um, so
I
I'm
you
actually
know what,
not
Sophie,
worried about
I
it.
say it because it's not actually in my best interest to say it, right? Because I am putting myself in a lot of danger, and I've already, like,
Yeah,
had issues with my job as well, and like probably going to lose it
yeah.
soon.
It's amazing that you've still got it, to be
Yeah,
honest. I was like, "How?"
I know. Yeah, and I'm looking for something else myself as well and stuff like that. But the
Yeah,
thing is, I'm saying it because this is how deeply I love Britain. I don't care what people think. I don't care if people see me as a Brit or not. It doesn't
mm,
matter to me, right? I love it so deeply that I'm willing to go against my best interest,
mm,
right? I'm willing not to put my interests ahead of the nation, because it's not
mm,
in my favor to do it. It is not in my favor to even go against the moderate Muslims and stuff like that. 'Cause
yeah,
I'm not. And when I'm going against them, I'm actually trying to awaken them, because I'm trying to tell them, look, your coding is bad. Either
yeah,
you reform, right? But your reformation would be rejecting everything Muhammad did, which is why there can't be
100%.
any reformation.
Yeah, I'm always saying that.
I'm recognizing it as evil, and I'm sort of like, in a Christian way, I'm trying to take care of their soul. But I have to say it. Then I can't just then, say like, okay, yeah, you can be here and you can have your mosque and you can, pray over there and whatnot and preserve your religion. Oh, how exotic culture you have. I
Mm,
know what that has done to Pakistan, right? I know that what has that has done to Iran and all these places. The more Islamization, the more mosques, the more madrasas that have happened. What was these countries, it's completely changed. Once there were many different religions that could live in Pakistan. There were even 2000 or more Jews that lived in Pakistan, if you can imagine
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And there were many different people who lived that. But since the Islamization of 1970s and onwards, it's just, it
yeah,
destroys it. And it's not as if like people think it more won't happen over here. The more people are loosely binded with who they are, the more people are unknowing of themselves,
yeah.
the easier it is to conquer them, right? And this is
You're
why I
right
want
in
to
the
awaken
sense that
people.
yeah, and you're right. Like again, everything's theological. If I didn't believe there were a God, I would be probably freaking out and saying the same things because I'm like, um, in the absence of a spiritual like awakening or change or revival, it is pretty much like we are screwed because we haven't got any self-confidence to uphold a religion, not even a religion,
Yeah,
sorry, our values. But for me, I think the point is that I don't know if this had happened 150 years ago or something, or at a time when we still had a robust sense of who we are, and our beliefs and our values, and we actually had
yeah,
principles. Remember that when we had
yeah,
principles? Um, Peter Hitchens writes about this brilliantly in The Rage Against God, and he talks about how we lost our confidence over the last century or so. But a nation like that could tolerate people within it who not I'm not saying are breaking the law, but who are exercising a freedom of speech and religion and assembly and all that stuff. because it's but the reason we can't do it now is because, it's like we've got uh we're completely toothless and
But
spineless.
Sophie, I also think like we can only tolerate those things up to a point. There's always, once a ratio becomes in their favor, once it depends, it depends on the set of people, right? So
Yeah.
if we have a group of people, Hindus and stuff, who are here, who are not of the same religion, right?
Yeah.
And they're opposed to Christianity or whatnot. It depends on their intention, what they want to do. Do they want to
Yeah.
conquer and spread Hinduism? If Hindus were like that, they're all conquering totalitarian, then I would have the
Yeah.
same feeling towards them, or like the Sikh
Yeah.
or whatever it might be. I think
Yeah.
so. It's just inevitable. The clash is inevitable. I want
Yeah.
people to wake up, ground up, right, and prepare themselves, because God only helps
Yeah.
those who help themselves. And God is not going to help people just because they have faith. God is going to help people even in that Christian sense. They need to work on themselves.
No, that's not true.
Okay,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
it's a common well, I don't know what, maybe you're just saying just a sort of generic phrase, but this idea that God helps those who help themselves is just a completely unbiblical idea. It's literally the opposite. God helps those who are helpless and can't help themselves and who reach out to him. But I think the problem here fundamentally is that you're right. Let's just say it's a numbers game, and you could say it is in a sense. Like they've Muslims have bigger families, they have much stronger sense of community. Let's say that the numbers. Let's say we've already reached critical mass, whereby in a few years we are Muslim majority, and they take over, and it becomes like Pakistan, or let's just say. Um, let's do a worst case scenario and say like they get their caliphate or whatever. It's like this is now a country under Sharia law. Obviously, that's a terrible dystopian idea. But again, this is this is where theology matters because again,
Well, why
I
do you
don't
think
think
that's a
I'm
dystopian
not
idea?
well for all the reasons that are obvious. Like no one wants to. We don't want to live under that. But the point is this: we
Then
are
why
not
have people who
Christians.
advocate for that?
Well, then we're not advocating for that. But what I'm saying is that I, as a Christian, and I don't think this life is all there is. I don't think that the most important thing for me to secure in this lifetime is a kind of nice sort of happy 1950s England. That's not my end goal.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Good.
our end
Yeah.
goal is to be in like through whatever situation, through riches or poorness or sickness or in health, to have a relationship with God, which is the ultimately the most fulfilling thing at a personal level. So you can have like affliction and you could live as a minority. You could the world for all I not for all I care because I love this world, but for me, I would rather be in a relationship with God personally and happily have that relationship with him and the world be, a caliphate and under Sharia law. Like that's to me, my relationship with God is way more fulfilling and I can have that um with him and that's more important to me. And Christians are looking to a kingdom that's not of this world. So they're not looking to just a nice idea of living in Britain. Our lives are short and full of suffering, and so we're building towards the kingdom of God, which is eternal life. And so for me, it's
I know.
I have no expectations that things should go well in this world. Like Christians, like so the teaching of the Bible isn't that people become Christians and everything gets better. The teaching of the Bible is this world descends into decay and things get worse and worse and there's more war and there's more suffering until the end comes. And either we die and go to be with God in a new restored creation or Christ comes again. So can you see here now the veil's been pulled
Yeah.
back. I'm not effing about. Like it's completely different question based on whether this God is real or not. Because our aims are different.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not aiming for the most important
No.
thing being a safe Western life. Do you see what I
No, no,
mean?
I know what you mean, and this is why I'm saying these are uncomfortable situations. So I will,
It's just a bit.
yeah, and at times I would take positions that I don't fully agree with, right? So the position
Yeah.
that I've currently taken of not
Mm.
allowing any mosques and not allowing any moderate Muslims and stuff is the position that I don't agree with fully, right?
But you're being
Yeah,
practical.
yeah, exactly. And because I know how this game plays out, and I
Yeah,
don't, and also I want people to disassociate ethnicity with Islam, right?
yeah,
It's not an ethnic religion and stuff. Just because someone is brown doesn't mean that is like an indicator of Islam. It doesn't mean like, oh, if I'm advocating for like, okay, there should be probably no mosque or whatever, and you know, uh be Muslims, but we're not giving any appeasement. That should be there anyways within the law. No favor for on religious grounds and stuff for religion that is opposed to us. But that doesn't mean that I'm saying like every brown and black person should get out of the country, right? Because that's not the whole point of it. Um,
I feel you.
and obviously, Christians would not agree with that, anyways, right? Um, yeah, I forgot my point. My point was like we have to be the more the more the more warnings that I can give on those regards, even though I have like I'm going less on that side anyways, the more I can make people realize that why opposing evil is important and why recognizing evil is important, is the more they will be prepared. Like,
Yeah.
so that phrase that I use, God helps those who helps themselves, is actually from Islam rather than Christianity, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
So
As in, like, that's from your
yeah,
scriptures?
yeah. So
Oh, really? Well, that explains a lot.
yeah,
Okay.
so but that is my way of saying that I want to prepare people, so when the time comes you have options of how to deal with them. But people unknowing of themselves will never take option, even if they are in majority, even if we are in majority 80%, 90% or something, who oppose Islam, we still won't be able to take over it, because it only took like what, 3 4 5% of the people were involved within American civil wars as well, like, revolutionary wars or whatever they are.
Yeah.
um it is a less concentrated minority that, there's more confirm in itself, that changes the course of action. I want
Yeah. If they've
the
got some
majority
swords as
to
well.
become concentrated enough that even if we how we deal with it, then it comes from the point of strength, right? Right now
Yeah.
my advocation for complete negation and for rejection of a religion comes from a point of weakness, because I see the country as weak, not just the government, but the people as weak because they don't have convictions. So if I was a
Yeah.
prime minister, I would take those strong measures, because I know my people
Yeah.
to not be able to deal with this and they will be
Yeah.
overcome by it. But if
Yeah.
if we create that cultural movement and awaken people, then I
Yeah.
would be able to have my thoughts from a point of, strength, and then I can say what you are saying more closely, what you're saying, than what I'm
Yeah.
saying right now.
Yeah. We're both articulating the out. We're both saying we both. I don't know. I mean, you're saying as much the right things that I would be saying if I weren't a Christian,
Yeah,
and well, I don't. I still don't know about the stopping the mosques and stuff. But in terms of like speaking from a place of weakness and like desperately trying to
yeah,
warn people, like that is the most that you personally can do. And it's great that you do it. And I do honor you for putting yourself at personal risk for doing
yeah. And
what
it's
you
it's
do.
not
And
even like,
it's clear you're a good faith actor as
yeah, I
well.
mean, I people don't understand this. Like, I have never felt at home in any other country among any other people, right? This is my home, and I am trying to defend it. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong in what I'm doing, but my intentions are not wrong. My intentions are to, like, defend Britain. And on the other hand as well, my other intention is of my connection with those people, right? I'm not heartless. I'm against
Mm.
Islam. I'm not against, like, actual human beings. And
Muslims, yeah.
these human beings who are of that faith, their hearts are being corrupted, their souls are being corrupted, and I
Mm.
worry about that day in and day and night. Like, it would be better if they can become Christian, or they can become Jews, or become Hindus, or become anything, just reject Islam, or even become, I don't know, atheist, because I don't believe in that being a good life anymore. But something, right? so that they reject it, because it's corrupting them, it is making them do things that they would not do otherwise,
mm,
you know.
mm.
And that is my worry as well with them. The more that we, if the West is strong enough, then it can influence that world as well. It can give
Yeah,
them a pathway as well. But that's not our
yeah,
responsibility. At the same time, I understand that's not our responsibility. I understand what's happening in America, what's happening in Canada, what's happening in France. It's not our responsibility. It really is time for people to think about what our responsibilities are towards Britain first, you know, and then the people within Britain, right?
mm,
Because, like, the charity has to become you start from home, because otherwise this is just going to become an international refugee center, like I been saying for a while. It just feels like that, it's just people think that the Star Trek world is the ideal world that we are aiming towards, where every kind of people are together and stuff. What they don't realize is those are the people within the enterprise, right? The elites who
mm.
are able to achieve something through their skills and stuff like that, and they are living the good life.
Yeah, but there are Cardassians up in the chat.
Yeah. Exactly, as well. And as well as the other people on the planet, they're not living so it is an elite. In that sense, it is a liberal elitist point of view as well, to think that
Yeah,
not
yeah,
everyone is capable of thinking out everything.
yeah,
People need a guidance, people need
yeah,
good values to be shown to them, not just be told to them. This is the problem as
yeah,
well. This is why the whole point, I come back to the cultural movement as well, that we have to show people, right?
yeah,
Show and tell.
yeah,
You can't just tell. Like, people need to see that this is the England, this is the Britain as it's supposed to be. And the more that they see it, the more they will clamor towards it. But yeah, it's
yeah.
almost coming up to 2 hours.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. You're expecting to do this a length of
yeah,
time?
I was expecting to like do it
All
one
right.
hour, and I'm pretty sure my wife is really mad right now.
So is my producer. I think he wants to go
Yeah.
out.
It was really good talking with you, because it made me think
Yeah, it was
on
a pleasure.
things that I haven't thought about. It made me challenge my own thoughts and argue against myself and for myself, at points. So yeah, I hope you had a good conversation as well.
Yeah. So I loved it. This is like my favorite
Yeah.
thing to talk about, like, just have these proper conversations and, like, really get down to it, and yeah, so, yeah, thank you so much for having
No,
me.
thank you so much for coming over. And yeah, I think so. We just need to have more and more conversations, everyone. Not just conversations that leads towards something concrete.
Mm,
Because
mm,
we've been
mm,
talking to death about the problems that we have. Now it's time that all people who can are or are in positions of influence, they start practicing those things and putting in practical terms and showing a path
mm.
towards salvation of us all. Thank you so much for being on, and everyone watching. I'll see you next time. Thank you.